So there are a lot of different technologies when it comes to TVs, and it's hard to know which to buy or what technology is going to be the future, right? So we're going to talk about all the different technologies that I can think of, whether it be OLED TVs, QD-OLED TVs, mini-LED TVs, and at the end we're going to talk about micro-LEDs, the unicorns of display technology. So stick around for that. But let's get right into it by talking about QD-OLEDs, because QD-OLEDs are kind of like the newest of the panels, and yet they may already be on their way out. So let's talk about that more. So OLED TVs, more or less, are basically individual pixels on a board here that all emit light. You send electricity through them, they emit light, pixel level control, and it gives you amazing contrast abilities, basically infinite contrast, and at the same time, bright and vibrant colors. And if you've had an OLED TV, you know that it's just fantastic overall, right? And then we got into the differences between regular OLEDs, and we have this new QD OLED. And the difference between the two is that a QD OLED just has blue light pushing through. And what the blue light does is it hits these quantum dots that change it into green and red. And so therefore you have bright and vibrant colors in an OLED TV, as opposed to just having white light coming through that kind of doesn't make it super colorful, but yet WOLEDs have traditionally been very bright as well. So now we have this QD OLED, right? Samsung Display created this. Samsung and Sony had QD OLEDs. They also have monitor companies that have made QD OLED monitors. I've seen them at CES for multiple years now. Absolutely love it. The TVs look fantastic, and it's, you know, a big winner. But they're also really expensive and not the most efficient cost-wise. So this year, QD OLED is going to be even brighter. So instead of having a peak brightness of around 3,000 nits on a smaller window, they're talking about 4,000 nits on a smaller window, and full screen having this QD OLED be around 400 nits full screen. So traditionally OLEDs will be like 150 to 200 nits full screen. And so if you're considering buying a mini LED, which is a backlight system, we'll talk about that in a second, or an OLED, and you're in a bright room and you're watching bright stuff like hockey, typically OLED TVs aren't going to be as bright right there, right? But when you're watching HDR footage or a movie or whatever, gaming, and you have smaller windows, OLEDs and specifically QD OLEDs have amazing specular highlights, super bright stars in the sky that you can see perfectly, where if you had it on mini LED, you wouldn't be able to see it so much because that system is a little bit more challenged. So QD OLED's great. I love them. To have something that's able to get to that 4,000 nits peak brightness this year, fantastic. But really the longevity of QD OLEDs depends on its ability to remain profitable or become profitable, because with any new technology, you're probably going to have a company losing money to try to promote that technology, and over time the goal is to make it more profitable. And just advances in mini LED TVs or regular WOLED TVs and them being less expensive than QD OLEDs has presented a challenge for Samsung Display. And even in the Samsung Electronics top of the line QD OLEDs like the S95L this year and the S90F, they're only having model sizes up to 77 inches in this QD OLED, while larger sizes like the 83-inch is a different panel structure, confirmed by multiple TV reviewers that went up at CES and checked the different structures. So, you know, I'm not 100% certain on that. It's most likely a different model. So even Samsung Electronics picking an 83-inch WOLED, whether it be with MLA or the new style that we're going to talk about in a second, the 4-stack panel, is that a sign that, you know, Samsung Display is just not going to go to an 83-inch or even larger models? Is that a sign that it's just not profitable in the models they currently have? I don't know the answers to that, but I'm just saying QD OLED, awesome overall, but I'm not really sure where QD OLEDs are going to go. And that makes me want to talk about the regular WOLED TVs that have been around for now, like I think 12 years. LG Display has been making their fantastic WOLEDs. And this year we have another change. So let's talk about that. Again, I've already described what an OLED TV is, and we'll compare with mini LED in a second. But just to talk quickly about where we were to where we are now with regular WOLEDs, we traditionally had RGB pixel structure with a white subpixel that gave more brightness. But there are some inefficiencies in those panels because you're going from colored light to create white light to then go through and again make colors and have a white subpixel. So basically a lot of the WOLEDs were inefficient in getting that brightness out, right? So using a lot of electricity to create a certain amount of brightness, again still having pixel level control, and in my opinion is better than a mini LED. At least a lot of the mid-tier mini LEDs for a lot of different reasons, like that individual pixel level control, the ability to have awesome contrast, still have good brightness, and then to, just looks great overall, great anti-reflective capabilities. So really like the OLEDs, but then we're starting to max out with that. So 2 years ago, LG Display added micro lens array or MLA technology to their panels, at least the top level panels, something like the G3. I think Panasonic eventually added that as well. And in that panel, you had different lenses up there really capturing all that wasted light or inefficient light and kind of pushing it straight out at you, as it were. So that was a nice improvement because it added brightness to the top of the line models. And then in 2024, you had second generation MLA, which was even better, focused that light even better, and made the G4 even brighter than the G3 from LG, their Gallery Series OLED, right? So if you're an OLED fan, you probably know this. Now in 2025, it looks like they're just going away from MLA technology by creating a new panel, which is a 4-stack panel. Now, I'm not sure a lot of people thought that there was going to be a page turn like this in WOLED. A lot of people had written the WOLED off in favor of that QD OLED, but the tables have turned really quickly because this new panel is going to be brighter than the old MLA panel that they created, and it doesn't even have that. That was expensive. This panel is going to be less expensive. It's going to be brighter. We saw the difference in the G5 from LG versus the G4. We got to see them side by side, and that looked fantastic. I mean, you could see it was clearly brighter without the MLA in there. So if LG Displays is able to then fit a lot of these models that we love, but we thought were kind of maxed out in WOLEDs with brighter panels, less expensive panels, panels that are more efficient, I think this is an evolution, and LG Displays is really going nowhere in 2025, especially if some of these companies adopt this. For example, you have Sony that had both QD-OLED and WOLED. You had Samsung Electronics that I just talked about that has QD-OLED, and it looks like this year they're adopting some form of that regular WOLED from LG Displays. So if you have Sony buying LG Displays and you have Samsung Electronics even buying them over some of their QD-OLEDs, I think the sky's the limits for WOLEDs, especially LG Displays. And it looks like we shouldn't count them out, as has happened for the last 11, 12 years. So I really think OLED TVs are fantastic. Probably my favorite technology. Do I have a preference between WOLED or QD-OLED? Not really, to be honest. In the end, when it comes to me offering buying advice, I end up looking at them as fairly similar. I think this year, again, both will have the 4K up to 165 hertz on their top models. So if you're a PC gamer, you're going to get similar gaming specs. I think they're both beautiful, bright, colorful TVs, and I think that they both have a lot of advantages over what I'm going to talk about next, which is mini LED TVs. Now, what is a mini LED TV? I mean, I think we all understand mini LEDs, right? Small lights in the backlight. So let's just go back to when they all started. I mean, we were talking traditionally about just an LED TV, something that has a backlight that sends out light, and then you have a panel that can block off light and some sort of color filter in between. So you shine light, you block light, you see colors, beautiful TV. And everything from the original LED TVs all the way up to the best mini LED TVs is some version of that LED LCD panel that we're talking about. And so over the years, they've gotten better. Of course, at some point they added LCD, the liquid crystal display, or we've added quantum dots. So now we have a QLED. And then we also have full array local dimming. So now you have dimming zones that help increase contrast, because the original LED TVs looked more gray when the light was not shining through as opposed to black, right? So your contrast wasn't great. So you add dimming zones that allow parts of the screen to be off as opposed to just having light being blocked. You get a big advantage there, right? But with all of these upgrades and movement through the progression of LED and now mini LED, you would get blooming or light bleeding, which is not great when you're trying to watch TV in the dark. And a lot of viewers don't really see that all the time, but if you're reviewing TVs, that's obviously a reason why OLED TVs are preferred sometimes over mini LED TVs. Now, mini LED TVs can be brighter, really bright, 4,000, 5,000, 10,000 nits. And once we added that mini LED in there, now you have the ability to have much smaller lights in the background. Obviously, better technology with regards to filtering that light out, more dimming zones, better color filters, quantum dots, all these things that make the mini LED look better, all while the processors are getting better and better to control these dimming zones, because having light or blocking light is great in theory, and being able to have dimming zones is awesome, but some of the TVs from a few years ago, they didn't have great processors, so you could see the dimming zones kind of trail behind where the light was actually supposed to be or not be. But now, you know, we have companies like TCL and Hisense and Samsung. They're really good processors, so you can get fantastic TVs. Like, for example, we had the UX this year from Hisense, and it was probably one of the best LED TVs I've ever seen. The transitions, the brightness, everything looked awesome. And the Bravia 9 from Sony, another one, now really expensive for 85-inch TV, around $5,000, but it was awesome. It had a whole new dimming zone structure that Sony showed us in a couple instances, and honestly, it was very impressive. So mini LED TVs continue to get better and better, and this year it looks like we're gonna have RGB backlight systems. So we got to see this with Hisense in their UX in the 100 and the 116-inch size. It's the first system that we've seen where it's not just about whether light comes through or not, but you can actually have colored light coming through. So now you can have green or red or blue backlight come through, and then you can shut that down or use the dimming zones in order to control that and bring it through. So it's just adding another layer of technology to something that is still really good, and it's affordable. You know, I'm not sure how affordable 100 and 116-inch RGB mini LED TVs coming from Hisense will be this year. We'll have to check it out. But Hisense, Samsung, and TCL are all sort of going this route right now. TCL had a model. We didn't really get to see a ton of it. It looks like more of a working concept or prototype. Maybe that'll be something that they come out with this year or next year. And then we also saw that Samsung had their RGB micro LED backlight system, which is not the micro LED that you're thinking of, but it's similar in that it has that similar backlight system in different colors. But it looked really impressive as well at CES. So kind of the new change in mini LED, but more or less what you have to understand is you're probably going to get a great opportunity to buy a mini LED TV less expensive than OLED TVs, while getting 90 to 95% of, you know, the benefits of an OLED with newer, higher dynamic contrast on these mini LED TVs, brighter overall picture quality. So you're looking at 1,000 nits or more full screen, as opposed to the OLEDs that I had said before that can get to 400 nits full screen now with the 4th generation QD-OLED. But at the same time, they still have some downsides like that backlight, like the blooming. So depending on where you're at in the price levels, there can be a wide range of quality. And so I guess you're just going to have to watch more reviews later on in the year to see how all the mini LEDs shake out in 2025. And that leads me to a very interesting fourth technology that we've talked about before, but it's never really been a reality. And I'm not sure it's still a reality for most people, but that's micro LED. So at CES, I've seen micro LEDs for like the past 3 or 4 years, and it's like the unicorn of TVs. Would it be awesome to have a 162-inch micro LED in my house? Absolutely. Am I going to pay $200,000 or more for that? Not a chance. Now, if you could tell me I could get a micro LED for $8,000, well, now that's kind of in the same realm as some of the most expensive OLED or mini LED TVs. So let me explain micro LED. Obviously, I've already said super expensive, right? But those are the highest end models with the most tech packed into it, and really just for the millionaires and billionaires out there, or companies that have video display walls. But we met with a company, AWOLL Vision, AWALL. You might know them from the UST, the ultra short throw projectors. But AWOLL has created a micro LED that is far less expensive than the ones that we've seen to date. And how they've done that is working with a company in China in order to make the panels more affordable for the everyman. We talked about having them be more affordable. We talked about them coming in prepackaged sizes, being able to buy a 75-inch widescreen or an 81-inch regular 16:9 TV, all the way up to 162 inches at about $50,000. So from $200,000 or $250,000 down to $50,000 for a big 162-inch screen does make it more comparable with the really expensive like theater projectors that you might have in a theater. So why would I choose this? So OLED TVs typically were known for having burn-in. I don't really think that's the case. I mean, I have not had burn-in on any of my OLED TVs, so I'm not here to be the Grim Reaper on OLEDs, as I said before. Absolutely love them. But the inorganic material of a micro LED should be more sustainable over time. Now, again, it's very expensive and it's going to consume a lot of power, but to see the technology put into these and the fact that they have chip on board displays, I mean, you have 28,000 pixels on a little square with processors controlling it, and you have 8 of those little chip on board displays in one panel. And in order to get to 162-inch size, you need 36 panels with all these wires. I mean, so obviously it's still coming together, but I'm excited because you're going to have the ability to get very bright screens, to have pixel level control, perfect contrast, all these different things that we love about OLED in larger and larger sizes, being able to regulate them in different ways, you know, to have one of these TVs that has 4 different HDMI inputs that can all be used simultaneously to create, you know, picture in picture, or like the quad box that we watch on our projector here, but that's sourced through YouTube TV. But the point is, micro LED is becoming more affordable. It's becoming something that's a reality as opposed to just something that we get to see at CES every year. Again, Samsung has it. Even Hisense had something this year, looked like a very bright and beautiful micro LED. But again, is that going to be affordable? So I was excited to see that AWOL Vision had this. The 162 inch is $50,000. So again, that is a doable price if you're considering put it in a theater versus some of the $70,000 to $80,000 projectors that would not be able to get nearly as bright as a micro LED. And again, some of the smaller sizes. It's just the point that competition is bringing this down to an area in which we may be able to afford it and consider it as a TV option. Now, some of the downsides to the micro LED again is that it might be more complicated to use as a TV. If a pixel goes out on one of these chip on board displays, you might have to replace one of those little squares, and that could be expensive. I mean, I know that AWOL said that they're going to be providing an extra 1 or 2, I don't know how many specifically, but you'll have options to replace parts of the screen as opposed to the entire screen, because obviously that would be really expensive. And then another downside could be, in order to get something like a 4K micro LED, counting the numbers vertically and horizontally, you're going to need a pixel pitch of around 0.9 millimeters, meaning that the LEDs are very close together in a certain way for you to get the resolution of 4K on a 162-inch screen. So if you're smaller than that, you're talking about a 1080 screen, or it just depends on how big it is. And if you start to squeeze those pixels closer and closer, you're going to create more heat. And that's the complication of trying to make smaller micro LEDs in 4K with all the bells and whistles that you have from OLED at a reasonable price, because let's be honest, OLED TVs are much less expensive to print or to make in 2025 than a micro LED. So I'm excited to see where micro LED goes in the next couple of years and to see if that's a logical replacement for some of these other large screen TVs, because I'm going to have a 162-inch micro LED this year, and you'll definitely have to watch that video when I put that screen together in my house. And then last but not least, we do have projectors, because I talked about some of the long throw projectors that are really expensive for theater rooms, and there's a lot of less expensive ones, more portable projectors that we've seen this year: Valerian, Dangby, JM Go, XGIMI. We've seen a lot of great long throw projectors, and then some of the really cool ultra short throw projectors. Now, personally, I'm not sure that a long throw projector is going to be a replacement for my TV in my living room. It's just not quite as easy for me to do. I think, you know, having something hanging up and projecting over my head into a daylight room where we're, you know, it's a little bit more difficult for me, but they're great use cases for when you're using them in different rooms, the portability, all that kind of stuff. But the ultra short throw has been one of my favorite over the last couple years. I mean, we did link up with a couple different ultra short throw companies, and I've seen some great improvement just in the last couple years. Recently, I had the LTV 3500 Pro from AWOL Vision, and that has been really nice in my living room. I mean, we have a pretty solid amount of light that comes through there, and it still looks really good. And at night, it looks fantastic. And there's just really no other way for us to get a TV image projected up onto, whether it be a 120 all the way up to a 150-inch screen size at this price point. OLED TVs typically only go up to 97, and even at the 97-inch size, it's like $30,000, right? I think this package that we have up here right now is probably about $6,000 to $7,000 all in on the projector, the screen. You know, the cabinet was more expensive, so that wasn't included. But for $10,000, you can fit your living room with a really, really nice, large, theater-like like system that we have here. And of course, you can do it for less if you just had a 98-inch TV, which is really nice, really awesome. If you've watched the channel, you know we've had a ton of different 98-inch TVs that are more than enough for most people because they don't need to go this big. But I'm just saying, if you're going to go over that size, logistics, packaging, trying to ship a 98-inch TV or a 115-inch TV, very challenging, very expensive, and a projector screen at 132 or 150-inch, absolutely awesome. So I love the ultra short throw projectors. I'm really excited to see how much better they can get over the years. And if you're in the market for a really large screen, I mean, it's obviously less expensive than a micro LED, but not as bright, and you're gonna have to make the decision on which one of these technologies is right for you. So what do you guys think? Are you gonna be buying an OLED or mini LED TV just because it's that technology that's affordable right now and you guys just want a 55-inch? You don't need a 98-inch, right? I'm sure a lot of people are in that boat. But if you're thinking about large screens, are you gonna be holding out for that new RGB 100 or 116-inch UX? Or might you consider going into the micro LED realm? You know, that's really expensive still, but it's really exciting. And if not, I want to know where you guys stand on projectors, because I like projectors and I like making them part of the channel, but I want to know what you guys think. Which technology is right for you? Let me know in the comments where the future is going. I'm really interested to hear your guys' thoughts. And check the links in the description if you're interested in getting any of this stuff now. It supports the channel. We appreciate that. Make sure to smash the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already in order to get more content like this. And I'll see you guys in the next video.